This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. Big news in the investigation into Donald Trump's interference in the 2020 election. Mike Pence has been on a quest to try to get himself not to testify. He's in a weird place, and he holds a weird space right now in all of this because he wants to be an opponent of Donald Trump, but he doesn't want to anger the Donald Trump mob, so he tries to be the guy who wants to be a patriot and tell the truth and do what's right by the country, but also behind the scenes is fighting for a court to say, it's okay, you don't have to testify. And now we're learning late last night, that it is not going to happen. A judge has now rebuffed his appeal, and according to Pence, he's not going to appeal the decision. But a judge has said, you do have to testify because there are things that were likely criminal that you cannot just hold on to. You're not going to be another John Bolton, Mike Pence. I'm going to read a little bit from the New York Times here. Trump can't stop Pence from testifying to January 6th grand jury, court rules. The ruling by an appeals court paved the way for the former vice president to appear before a federal grand jury as early as this week. Well, you better hurry up, brother, because there's only 2 days left in the week. A federal appeals court rejected on Wednesday night an emergency attempt by former President Donald J. Trump to stop former Vice President Mike Pence. Why don't they give the middle initial for Pence, but they got to give it for Donald J. Trump, the X. For Vice President Mike Pence from testifying in front of a grand jury investigating Mr. Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election. The 11th hour ruling by the U.S. District Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C., paved the way for Mr. Pence to appear before the federal grand jury as early as this week once again. Mr. Pence has always been a potentially important witness in the inquiry because of the conversations he took part in at the White House in the weeks leading up to the attack on January 6th, 2021. During that time, Mr. Trump repeatedly pressed Mr. Pence to use his ceremonial role overseeing the congressional count of electoral votes to block or delay certification of his defeat. It's not just what led up to that day, it was on that day. Now, I don't know that they had specific conversations on that day, but Mike Pence is privy to all of this. Conversations inside the Oval Office, conversations that Donald Trump had with others. Mike Pence is the linchpin to all of this because there's no one who's going to be able to impeach the testimony of the man who chose not to violate the Constitution and in some way did, not by maliciousness, but did incite the crowd. It was a justification, an inciting incident relative to the insurrection and the attempted overthrow of the United States government because the crybabies didn't have their guy win. And rather than just protest like many of us did, that we're not going to stand here and take authoritarian policies from Donald Trump, we took to the streets. We raised our voices. That's not what they did. They attacked the United States Capitol. People died. There was violence. They were armed. It was an insurrection because they wanted to overturn the results of the free and fair settled American election. Last month, in a pair of sealed rulings, Judge James Boasberg, the chief judge of the federal district in Washington, ordered Mr. Pence to appear before the grand jury, striking down two separate challenges that would have kept him from answering certain questions. In one of those challenges, Mr. Pence sought on his own to limit his testimony by arguing his role as the president of the Senate on January 6th. When Mr. Trump's defeat was certified by Congress, he thought that meant he was protected from legal scrutiny by the executive branch, including the Justice Department. That argument was based on the speech or debate clause of the Constitution, which is intended to protect the separation of powers. Now, I've argued, not a lawyer, but I've argued that is a nonsense argument. Dick Cheney did the same thing during the Bush administration by when people would come to him and say, you have to do this, the Congress, he would say, I'm a part of the executive branch. I'm the vice president of the United States. There's a separation of powers. And then when someone from the executive branch, like the Justice Department, would come to him and say, you have to comply, he would say, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm the president of the Senate. I'm not even a part of the executive branch. I'm covered by the speech and debate clause. It's nonsense. Anyway, it's dragging up a bunch of old emotions for me about Darth Vader, Dick Cheney. Judge Boasberg ruled that while Mike Pence could claim some protections against testimony under the clause, he would have to answer questions about any potentially illegal acts committed by Mr. Trump. This month, Mr. Pence announced he did not intend to appeal the decision. So this is where we are. Mike Pence is going to have to, under oath, because of a subpoena, a federal grand jury is compelling his testimony. He's not going to be able to plead the fifth because there's no incrimination on his part that he needs to cover up for, that he needs to protect himself from. This is about Donald Trump's crimes. This is about the man he stared at glowingly for 4 years. It's about his behavior, his actions, not Mike Pence's. So this is good news. It is just a small report because we don't know what's going to come of it. And we probably won't know for months because the grand jury, this federal grand jury, under the control of Jack Smith, has been doing its work quietly, diligently, responsibly, professionally, pick your adjective. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think about this. You can call, leave me a voicemail, 714-576-4054. You can leave some comments in the comment section. That would be great. You can also email me, daily@dollemore.com. If you appreciate what I do, I would appreciate if you consider supporting my work right here on the channel. You can click the join button below, become a channel member for $2 a month, or go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Follow me on social media. There's all kinds of ways to get at me. I'm at Dollemore on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Those are good times. A lot to be seen. A lot to know, a lot to learn about what is taking place. And I hope that I am a source for that. I'm a destination for information about all of that. Anyway, I love you guys very much. I appreciate you spending some time with me, engaging with my content, and I will see you next time. Until then, as always, be genuine. Take care of one another.